everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylin and this is Full Purpose and Heart. And in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, and it's typically the conversation I have with new homeschoolers or people who know me who are homeschooling, that I do homeschool and are considering homeschooling themselves. And without fail, one of the questions or one of the concerns that people have is, I don't think I can do that. Like, I don't know how to homeschool. And I always just, I don't know, it's just a conversation that's near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to share it with you guys today in case you are starting a homeschool journey, or maybe you have found yourself suddenly homeschooling and you're considering continuing that path since homeschooling was thrust upon you, that you actually kind of enjoyed it. So let me just kind of share with you a couple of my thoughts as to your feelings as to whether or not you can homeschool. All right, so this conversation starts many years ago when I was a public school teacher, and I taught public school for 7 years. I started in the high school world. I taught 1 year of junior high, and then I went into high school for the remaining 6 years. And during that time, over the course of the 7 years, I really learned to love the art of teaching, and I really fine-tuned my skills and was able to feel confident in teaching my classes. But I didn't start out like that. When I actually didn't learn how to teach a class until I started teaching. And I remember specifically, if you're new to my channel, then this will be a new story for you. So I apologize to all of those who have heard this story before. But when I started teaching, I was teaching as a intern student. And so I was technically still a college student. I hadn't graduated, but because I had elected, or I had opted to have an entire classroom to myself for the entire school year. And they paid me a very small salary because I had volunteered my time and my very low experience to teach a class. So I was a teacher. I was the only adult in the class, and I had 7 class periods that I was teaching. But they did graciously give me a mentor who was on campus as well, and she was an English teacher. I taught history. So we weren't in the same discipline, but we, kind of got to know each other. Now, she wasn't, I don't know, we just never really meshed, and so I didn't feel a lot of support from the mentor. But my particular story comes from one afternoon after I had had a particularly difficult day, which many of my days were difficult, and she sat down to kind of just check in with me and see if she could help me with something and how things were going. And I just was emotionally spent and just like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. Like, could you help me at least put together a lesson plan for tomorrow? And she picked up the textbook and she opened to the page where we were on. And I remember her saying, well, I can just look at a page and a lesson plan will come to me. So let me just figure it out for you. I remember thinking, you little brat, like I was dying almost every single day teaching these classes, and heaven help those kids. They probably to this day never knew what the Revolutionary War was until their next teacher taught them, because it was a struggle for me. And she had the nerve to sit there and just kind of half-heartedly be like, oh, it's no big deal. I just look at a page and I can figure out a lesson to put together. And I didn't feel that way at all. And so anyway, time went on, and of course I finished that year, and I had promised myself at the end of that year that I would never teach again, and that I had just studied the wrong topic and gone into the wrong field, and I wasn't going to be a teacher. One event led to another, and eventually I did. I chose to take a job that I was offered, and I moved, and I ended up teaching for the next 6 years in a profession that I've learned to love. So the moral of the story is this: when you start to teach, you are not going to know how to do it. And I was having a conversation with a friend, and she often says in her first year of homeschooling, she would say, I never went to school for this. I don't know how to do this. You wouldn't hire a mechanic to fix your car if the mechanic didn't know how to do it. You wouldn't hire someone to be a plumber in your house if they didn't know what they were doing. And there is some truth to that, but you have to start somewhere. And I can guarantee you that the mechanic and the plumber and the contractor and anybody else out there had a first day when they didn't know exactly how to do it. And sometimes you have to just figure it out as you go along. Well, that's what homeschooling is. And that's what teaching was for me. I really had to kind of just figure it out as I went along. And I can't speak for the entire homeschool community, but I have spoken to several homeschool people who are veterans in the field with kids who are now in junior high and high school, and they will echo my feelings in that when they started, they didn't know what they were doing. They just kind of figured it out as they went along. Now, for some of you, that's going to be a little bit easier to digest because your kids are young, so it's easy to learn as you go when you're teaching them simple concepts. It's a little more difficult to jump into it if you're choosing to start with your junior high student or a high schooler for that matter, but it isn't impossible. I jumped into teaching world history. That was my discipline of hiring, not of choice, but that's where I was hired. And my track record for world history was poor at best. I had failed both of my world history classes in college, had to retake both of them, and only got a very minimal passing grade. Well, guess what I ended up teaching? World history. So all that is to say that even though you don't have experience, you're not going to know how to do it unless you just start doing it. And coming from a teacher who was in a public school background, I was put into a classroom with 30 to 40 students and was told, figure it out. Like, here's your students, now you have to teach them. In fact, which reminds me, when I got hired into the school that I taught the most years at, I was hired to teach a freshman seminar class, 2 different subjects, both of which I had 0 experience on, and I literally had no idea what I was doing. And you just have to build curriculum over that. Well, if you remember my story, I didn't know how to make lessons and I didn't know how to build curriculum. It came with time. Well, when I retired from the public school world, my 7th year of teaching, and began more of a private school world, I could confidently say that I could look at any section or part of a chapter or anything like that and build a lesson from it pretty easily. But that came with time. So today, now that I'm teaching my own children in our homeschool life, then I do have a little more years of experience that I can fall back on to learn how to make a lesson plan and learn how to kind of work the material to work for my teaching style and how I want to present the information for my kids. But not everybody's going to be able to start like that because I didn't start like that when I was in public school. And so when you're in the beginning, you have to do what I did when I was a first-year teacher. And that is you have to lean on to the curriculum that you've been offered. There's a plethora of stuff out there, and you have to lean into people who have already done it. If you don't know people personally, then do what I did, which was lean into YouTube. There was a plethora of really amazing women who have been doing it or are just now starting like you are. And they can share their experiences, their ups, their downs, what curriculum is working, what's not working, and how they're modifying it for their families. Nobody knows their family and their kids as good as you do, and nobody is going to be able to offer them the love and the support and the attention that you can. And so don't be afraid of the inexperience that you feel. Don't let that stop you from the amazing benefits that come, because we're all inexperienced when we start. None of us have homeschooled by the time we decide to start, even if we come from a homeschooling family. I was a public school student. I jumped into public school teaching, and I literally didn't know what I was doing even after 4 years of formal education in how to become a teacher. So I hope that these words can be a little bit of an encouragement to you, that you may feel inexperienced and you may feel inadequate at this job, but it will come with time. And whether your student is older or younger, it doesn't matter. It's all going to come with time. And as long as you just acknowledge that feeling and step into that, then you'll be able to grow and you'll be able to become a little bit better every day. But if you are afraid of it and you don't ever start, then you'll constantly allow that fear to stop you. And there's nothing to be afraid of, because there's always repeated information and review. And I was laughing with one of my friends one time when we were talking about this subject, and she's like, what if I mess it up? What if they get out of 4th grade and they haven't learned anything? And I chuckled and thought, what do we remember about fourth grade? Honestly, like, I have one memory from fourth grade, and it's not even a good one. And it has nothing to do with academics. It has everything to do with my social life. So anyway, I leave these thoughts with you to encourage you and to hopefully just let you guys know that there are resources out there that can help you, either in person, you may know somebody, or you have a local community that can help you get started. And if you don't, because I didn't, then there is YouTube, there's distance learning options, and of course, just the World Wide Web full of resources that can tell you exactly how to teach your kid word by word. Say this, wait for them to answer that, say this, and you will learn. And eventually, after 1 year or 2 years, then you'll begin to see, this is what works for me, this is my teaching style, this is what works for my kids, this is their learning style, and you can mash all that stuff together to create a really good homeschool life that's full of hills and valleys and confusion and surprises, which most homeschooling journeys are, and that's the beauty of it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching this video. Please share it with anybody that you know who is struggling or that comes to your mind thinking, oh, they would actually benefit from these kinds of words. Hopefully they're encouraging to you. Subscribe to my channel if you want to learn. I've got lots of content here about our homeschool journey, curriculum that we have learned and that we have found and that we have used, that we have started and then stopped, and all kinds of that good stuff. So feel free to just look through my playlist, and if something pops up, then hopefully you'll find some value there. And you can subscribe for any new content. I have a third grader coming up here in the 2020-21 coming school year. And then I have a kindergarten first grader, and we're starting with my new preschooler. So lots of good stuff going over here on our side of the mountain, and I invite you to follow us here. So thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you in another one of my videos. Bye.